Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I am Andrew Sumner, and I've got a very special guest on today's show, legendary author, a fellow former IPC veteran, and my old mate, Michael Moorcock. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing fine, thanks, Andy. It's interesting to talk about IPC because you've got the rest of the history, as it were, after I left. I think I left in '61. Probably, yeah, it was because I was in the union. I couldn't be on the committee of the union until I was 21, so I was still there. I was troublemaking as usual, or trying to make trouble. We didn't really succeed in the end. But it was with the big takeovers of the late 50s, when Halton and Oddams and IPC were all gobbling one another up, as it were. IPC was really gobbling everybody up. And we were in the union, and there were things to be done because of people being seriously hurt by that.
Yeah, anyway. No, of course, of course. I mean, that was a very interesting period of time. And
yeah, it was.
In your in that. I mean, it's like everything. When you work for these big corporations, those issues are actually never fully resolved. And they linger on. They linger on in big business. And they were certainly linger on in my year as well. I prefer to look at my time at IPC in terms of, the things that I was lucky enough to work on. One of which we massively have in common, which is Sexton Blake, because you were heavily involved with Sexton Blake. I
was signed on as assistant editor to Sexton Blake. That was the job I actually had. I did all sorts of other jobs as well because, frankly, we were overstaffed. We were horribly overstaffed. We didn't have anything to do. If you got in early before anybody else got in, you could get your whole day's work over, or week's work over, almost before 10 o'clock, and which I frequently did because I was up all night. So I just went into work and did my work, and then slept the rest of the day. But that changed quite a bit with the harsh realities of Thatcher's Britain.
Right on. As time wore on, those things changed.
As time wore on.
When I started in the 80s, in the early years, there was still the hangover of that kind of workload and that kind of timekeeping, and that was back in the day before there was like all day drinking in the UK. Pubs used to shut in the afternoon.
Yeah,
and all the editors and salespeople had found a network of pubs that did secret lock-ins throughout the afternoon,
right.
And that's where you spend your afternoon.
If you weren't chucked out of the pub, which is the other problem.
Correct. Yeah, which is the other problem. Yeah, which is a major risk.
We used to drink up Fleet Street, being barred from each pub as we went, then back down Fleet Street on the other side of the road. And by the time we got to, say, the Punch, we were all right. We could start again and go up again. I think it was the Punch on the corner of...
Yeah, it was. Still going strong, by the way.
Is
still
it?
There.
Oh,
Punch
good.
Tavern, yeah.
They had a nice lunch. They all had nice lunches then. I don't know if they probably have posh gourmet lunches now.
Food at the Punch is still good, and it's still pretty much standard pub fare.
Yeah,
but it is still particularly nice.
Yeah, I particularly miss a good pub lunch. And Linda does too.
Yeah,
it's something you can't get here at all, really.
No, that is very true. And the other thing, of course, you can't get in your current neck of the woods is a decent Sunday lunch. Decent like Sunday lunch.
No way again.
Impossible, isn't
Sunday lunch. Not this end of the States anyway. I don't know what it's like in Boston or somewhere in New England.
Yeah.
I know they have really good fish and chips in Boston. They probably have the best fish and chips in the world in Maine, I think.
Yeah,
I agree. That area, New England.
I agree. All that stuff in Boston's great. I'm a big Boston fan. All the clam chowder and everything's very good.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
All the from the sea stuff,
it's really great food. But you don't, you only see a shadow of it in Texas, and it's all barbecue and heavily spiced food here, which I'm allergic to, so I can't even go into a restaurant.
Oh man!
When Linda used to prepare it when we were in Mexico, I used to have to go out of the house because I would get allergic, even if she was cooking it in the house. So I'm not in the right place for food, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I know. I feel you, brother. I've spent a lot of time in the city where you now live, and your neck of the woods you're living at the
It's a
moment.
nice city, or it used to be anyway.
Well, it's certainly the best city in Texas, I think, personally.
Oh, it's the best. It's one of the best cities in the States. It used to be. It's now just another corporate city. It's not the same at all. I mean, all the big festivals, the South by Southwest stuff and all of that, have just become totally divorced from anything that's really going on in the actual city, because nobody can afford to live in Austin anymore.
That is absolutely a common global problem, isn't it? It's the same thing with soccer matches, same thing with sports, and it's all of that. But absolutely. Before anybody thinks they've tuned into Moorcock and Sumner's food channel and city guide, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Yeah, now on the football channel now. I'm going to ask you a few questions about your work. So recently, my colleagues at Titan are in the middle of a huge republication project for all of your comics, the Michael Moorcock Library.
Oh, really? Oh, yes. No, I know that. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That wasn't the answer I was expecting.
Carry on.
And when we were last on, we were talking about our repackaging of our new recolored edition of Stormbringer, adapted by P. Craig Russell. And you and I were talking with Craig. But now that after some delay, which I apologise for, you now have your actual copies. What do you think of it?
Very handsome indeed. Very, very nice. I mean, I particularly like the colour. It really does add to the whole thing, and I can see why Craig wanted to colour it that way, because it fits so much better than the Topps colouring. I mean, Topps Dark Horse, I think, did it. It wasn't bad colour for comics, but it was still not the artist's preference, and you can see that really does improve it enormously. It's a lovely book. I mean, I hadn't really looked at it much, because I don't tend to give attention to old stuff, as it were, when it comes in. I'm doing something else, and that's all old stuff. I'm not interested. Then, even a year or two later, I mean, it can be quite late, I'll look at it, and then I'll get the, I can see what other people saw in it, for instance, if it's good, and even not. But nonetheless, I mean, it really was a pleasure to get that book, I must say.
Well, I'm so glad that you're pleased, because we put a massive amount of hard work in at our end in getting it right, and I'm glad that you can see the work on the page.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I knew well, at least I knew Craig wanted to do something, and you were kind of vaguely, but I didn't really know what was going on. I only saw the result, and I'm rather glad. I mean, I prefer it that way, because it's you get a fresher eye on something.
Oh, for sure. And if you're just tuning in, or you've been watching this the whole way along and we're initially perplexed, we're actually talking about the Michael Moorcock Library edition of Stormbringer by P. Craig Russell, and it's you can buy it from Forbidden Planet from the links attached to our conversation. And Mike, the big, for me, lifelong Elric fan elephant in the room conversation I want to have with you is about Elric Book 13, The Citadel of Forgotten Myths, which is publishing in October, which again is available for pre-order here. What can you tell me about it, mate?
I didn't know it was 13. I'm horribly superstitious. Oh, jeez. 12 and a half.
12 and a half, yes. 12 and 3/4.
12 and 3/4. It's actually longer than many of the other books, but we'll skip that. I don't know. John Davies is the only person, John Davies, the editor that I work with always. And John, I said to John, is it all right? Because he didn't say anything about it. I sometimes wonder, because he's the only person who read it at that point. He said, well, it's very different from the other Elric books. I thought, bloody hell, I thought it was exactly the same. I mean, not exactly the same as the other Elric books, but, the same in tone and pace, but apparently not. So but I mean, I'm happy with it. I was happy with it. It's based on two short stories. Two short Elric stories I wrote. One of which was in Weird Tales, and I think one was in an anthology. I forget the anthology, but it was one of those sword and sorcery anthologies, I think. And they're straight Elric stories. They're not kind of Elric moving into the multiverse, as it were. This is Elric in his own universe, in his own time. The timeline is exactly the same, such as it is. And I didn't think it was that different. But as I say, he does. So it could be that I might have spent a little bit more time developing background character, but only the main characters. I mean, obviously I've got a lot of characters in it, but I don't think I gave excessive amounts of it, description. And maybe it's obviously exploring a theme. I mean, I always explore a theme, however badly, but there's usually a theme there. And this one was really, I suppose I had, I was trying to expand the dragon mythology, the form, and but at the same time, the other thing was I was trying to give the readers who'd been asking for Zionbarg a lot, the Queen of the Swords, because everybody likes her for some reason. So I thought I'd bring her back in. Why not? So she's in it, but it might just have a different feel to it. I don't know. I don't think it'd be a bad feel, but it might just, I obviously don't like to do the same things over again. I've never done that, and I try to expand it and develop it rather than just imitate myself, which I've got a horror of doing that, of becoming one of those writers, because prolific writers frequently do become very, very samey.
I think there's no chance of that happening to you, and
well,
indeed,
not now. I mean, I've got a fairly good track record.
And one of the great things about Elric is how variable the universe is and the tales are.
Yes, well,
I think that's the fun of it.
And also, I'm trying always to speak up for chaos, and by that I mean complexity. And I mean, multiplicity and complexity are what I love. I love it. I love every variant of human beings, much as I hate them half the time. You know what I mean? And I just do love the variety of it all. It's just amazing to me that we somehow this has come into being. And all those ideas, the current ideas of, are we actually producing holographic versions, of the universe now? Is that what Hubble's giving us? We don't know. We may be inventing what Hubble's seeing. So when you start to get to that kind of level, it really gets interesting,
Yeah, no, it really does. And the Citadel of Forgotten Myths, how long did it take you to put that together, given the fact that we've had the global catastrophe, the pandemic, all of that going on?
Well, I was actually, as you probably know, writing it to come out last year as the 60th anniversary book. Yeah. But it was probably unrealistic of me to try that, and I actually made things worse by trying to get it out in that time. It didn't do anybody any favors. So I'm reconciled to that now. And John Davey brought the Dreaming City, the little Dreaming City memorial book, 60th anniversary book out, and I was able to make some changes to that too. So there's slightly more logic to how Elric behaves. And so it's really, I'm trying not to give too much away, because there's an important background change. It's still the same world. It's still Elric's world, but it's it's the other side of the world. I might as well tell you while I'm at it, since here we go. I'm just incapable of discretion. I imagine it, or they imagine it anyway, as a sort of more or less an egg-shaped world, but with a large, with a rather more like an airship-shaped world, really.
Yeah.
That sort of shape, and this is set on the other side of that world, but it has the same characters, all the same, the same cosmology, but it just expands it and explores a bit more about the origin of the Melniboneans and the dragons, which I think I've already shown how they're basically of the same race.
Yes.
And sort of combined in certain ways. And I got a few other things in there, usual bells and whistles.
I wouldn't think anything else. I mean, as a again, kind of an Elric fan from way back. I mean, that what you're just saying is very exciting to me, and
Good. I'm
sure
glad that is, because I really hate to disappoint. You know what it's like when you're a fan of series of books and they just slowly get more familiar and less. They just spark less, and I just got a horror of doing that. I think you shouldn't do it if you're not gonna add something to it and make it worth it. Then I don't think you should do it. I mean, that's just my feeling. But then, of course, I'm not stuck with just one character.
Well, Mike, I'm massively, as you know, massively excited about the City of Forgotten Myths, written by the man who never disappoints, Michael Moorcock, and coming out on 27th of October 2022 in the UK, published by Galance and available for pre-order from the links attached to our conversation.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And if anybody's watching this and has enjoyed this conversation, there's never an unenjoyable conversation with Michael Moorcock. Go back and look at our previous interviews on Forbidden Planet TV, or you could check out Mike's ongoing podcast series, Michael Moorcock's Multiverse, with myself, which will stick a link into the links to this YouTube video as well. And Mike, thanks so much for joining me, mate. It's always great to see you, brother.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Always great to see you too.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.